The Nigma Empire had ruled the stars for over 1,000 years. Their conquests were swift, merciless, and absolute. Empires crumbled before them. Planets were stripped of their resources, their populations enslaved or annihilated. In the grand halls of the Imperial Council, the idea that any race could challenge them was unthinkable. They were the pinnacle of evolution, the chosen rulers of the galaxy. And so, when a scouting fleet detected a small cluster of human colonies on the outer rim of their ever-expanding domain, they did not hesitate. The humans were an anomaly. They had no vast empire, no ancient lineage of cosmic dominance. Yet their expansion across the stars had been efficient, calculated. Their technology, while seemingly primitive in some aspects, carried a strange unpredictability that unsettled even the most hardened Nigma strategists. They had fought no major wars against the great empires, nor had they sought alliances. They simply existed, growing stronger in the shadows of giants. The Nigma leadership debated whether to assimilate them as vassals or eradicate them entirely. In the end, arrogance dictated their course. The first act of hostility was subtle, almost routine. A Nigma reconnaissance vessel, sleek and black as the void, slipped into the orbit of a human colony. They observed silently, noting the planet's defenses, the energy output of its cities. They expected fear, or at the very least, curiosity. Instead, they found something unsettling. The humans did not react with panic or distress. Their planetary defense network adjusted its targeting systems with mechanical precision, locking onto the intruder. A single transmission was sent across all frequencies. "Leave now. This is your only warning." The Nigma ship ignored the message, scanning deeper. They registered power surges, then silence. Every human system seemed to shut down at once. The Nigma commander barely had time to react before the ship's navigation failed. Propulsion cut off as if severed by an unseen hand. Moments later, the ship was swallowed by an energy net and pulled from orbit like an insect caught in a web. The crew sent a distress signal, but by then it was too late. The humans had them. The Nigma leadership was furious. No species had ever captured one of their ships before. A retaliation fleet was dispatched within the hour. They arrived to find the colony untouched, its cities still glowing in the dim light of the system's sun. But their ship, one of the Empire's finest, was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply absent, as if it had never existed. The retaliation was swift. The fleet rained destruction upon the colony, expecting resistance, expecting warships to meet them in the void. None came. They reduced the colony to ruin and left, believing the matter settled. It was only later, when their own capital world fell silent for a full 6 minutes, that they realized something was terribly wrong. When communications returned, a single message pulsed through every screen, every speaker, every interface the Nigma possessed. You were warned. At first, the message was dismissed as a meaningless act of defiance from a dying race. But then reports trickled in from across Nigma space. Ships disappearing without a trace. Outposts left intact but completely abandoned, as if their inhabitants had simply vanished. The Empire's mightiest generals began speaking in hushed tones about something they had never encountered before: fear. But the Emperor did not believe in fear. He believed in power. And so, with all the arrogance of a being who had never known defeat, he issued a command that would seal the fate of his empire: find them, crush them, erase them from existence. And thus, the Nigma set course to the heart of human space, unaware that they had just declared war on the wrong species. The Nigma invasion fleet arrived in human space with the force of a hammer striking glass. Thousands of warships, each a floating fortress of blackened metal and pulsating energy, descended upon the colony of Arcadia Prime. They expected submission. They expected terror. Instead, they found silence. The colony's defense grid remained inactive, its orbital stations unresponsive. It was as if the planet itself had been abandoned. Admiral Xiphos, the fleet's commander, watched from the bridge of his warship, eyes narrowing. Something was wrong. He had led countless invasions, had watched civilizations crumble at his command. Fear was a language he understood well. Yet this silence, this eerie lack of reaction, was something else entirely. He ordered his ships into formation, scanning the surface for signs of life. Readings were erratic, shifting between normal and complete null. Energy signatures flickered like dying stars, present one moment, gone the next. A transmission crackled through the void. It did not originate from the planet, nor from any known human vessel. The voice was calm, precise. "This is your last chance. Turn back." Xiphos sneered. The audacity of these creatures. He barked a command to attack. Within seconds, the first wave of orbital bombardments rained down upon the colony. Explosions rippled across the surface, firestorms consuming entire districts. Yet as the smoke rose, something unnatural happened. The fire did not spread. The destruction did not linger. It was as if the planet itself refused to burn. Then the sky changed. Dark clouds swirled out of nowhere, electricity crackling to the atmosphere in unnatural arcs. The Nigma ships, hovering above the planet, suddenly found their systems flickering, displays distorting with bursts of static. Xiphos turned to his crew, demanding answers, but none came. And then, as if the universe itself had exhaled, an unseen force struck the fleet. It was not a physical attack, not a weapon in any conventional sense. Ships simply ceased to function. Power cores dimmed. Engines fell silent. Communications collapsed. One by one, Nigma warships hung in space, helpless. Xiphos felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. This was impossible. From the void, human ships emerged. They were unlike any the Nigma had encountered before. No grand armadas, no towering dreadnoughts bristling with cannons. These ships were sleek, elegant, their hulls shifting as if adapting to the very fabric of reality. And they did not fire conventional weapons. They didn't need to. The first Nigma warship began to break apart, not from explosion, but from within. Metal twisted, peeled away like rotting flesh. Energy barriers flickered uselessly as an unseen force unraveled the very structure of the ship. Crew members inside screamed before their voices were abruptly cut off. Xiphos watched in horror as his fleet suffered the same fate. He slammed his fist on the control panel, trying to issue commands, but his voice never reached his officers. They were already gone, their bodies dissipating into motes of shimmering light. His ship, the pride of the Nigma fleet, began to fracture. Desperation clawed at his mind. He had to retreat, had to warn the Empire, but then the voice returned, now resonating directly inside his mind. "We warned you." The last thing Admiral Xiphos saw before darkness took him was his own reflection, dissolving into nothing. The Nigma homeworld stood in eerie silence. Once the heart of an empire that had stretched across the stars, it was now a world waiting for judgment. Cities carved from obsidian and metal, grand monuments of their conquests, loomed under a sky thick with the glow of orbital fires. The great halls of their ruling caste, where strategies of domination have been whispered for centuries, now echoed with a suffocating absence of sound. The fleet was gone. No transmissions. No survivors. Only silence. High Chancellor Vorin stood before the Imperial Council, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. The chamber was filled with the highest-ranking officials of the Empire, generals, scientists, advisors. Their expressions were unreadable, but he could smell it on them. Fear. It coiled through the air like smoke. They had always believed their empire to be unshakable. Now, for the first time, they faced the unknown. They must be hiding, when the general snapped, slamming his fist on the table. The fleet cannot simply be gone. Vorin said nothing. He had seen the last transmissions himself. The static-laced images of warships dissolving like dust in the wind. The faces of his officers contorted in disbelief before vanishing entirely. No wreckage. No distress calls. Just void. A transmission request interrupted the tense silence. The room turned toward the central display as the feed stabilized. The image was simple. A single human figure standing against a black backdrop, their face hidden in shadow. When they spoke, their voice was calm. "Your empire no longer exists." The weight of the words settled heavily in the room. One of the council members scoffed, but the sound was hollow. Vorin's fingers twitched at his sides. He forced his voice to remain steady. "This is a declaration of war." The human tilted their head, Slightly. No, war requires two sides. You are not an empire anymore. You are remnants. Laughter erupted from the council, forced and brittle. One of the generals stepped forward. You think a single lost fleet. Not a fleet, the human interrupted. Your entire military force is gone. Every occupied world you controlled is free. Every station abandoned. Every system dark. You have no ships, no armies, no colonies. The room fell silent again. One of the advisors, a data analyst, frantically tapped on his console, attempting to verify the claim, his face drained of color. It's true, he whispered. No active fleets, no outposts, no response from any of our systems. Panic spread like a plague. Voices overlapped in frantic arguments, demands for explanations, desperate theories. Vorin remained still. He had studied humanity more than any of his peers. Unlike the others, he had not dismissed them as a mere upstart race. He had suspected, even feared, that they were something different. Now, standing on the precipice of extinction, he understood. Why? He asked. His voice was quieter than he intended. The human's shadowed face did not move. Because we warned you. The transmission ended. No threats, no further demands. Just the cold finality of truth. Vorin exhaled slowly. Around him, the council had devolved into chaos, shouting, pleading, grasping at solutions that did not exist. He turned away from them, stepping toward the massive windows that overlooked the city. Once, he would have admired the spires that stretched toward the heavens, the towering symbols of Nigma supremacy. Now they felt meaningless. He had spent his life shaping the empire, expanding its reach, ensuring its dominance. But in the end, they had not been defeated by a superior fleet or a grand rebellion. They had been undone by something far worse. The realization settled in his bones like ice. They had been erased. The galaxy had changed overnight. Where once the Nigma Empire had cast its long shadow over the stars, now there was only emptiness. Their fleets, their colonies, their war machines, all gone as if they had never existed. Some remnants of their race still remained, scattered across the ruins of their homeworld and a few isolated outposts too distant to have been touched yet. But they were no longer conquerors. They were ghosts. The fall of the Nigma sent tremors through the cosmos. Empires that had once cowered before them now whisper the humans with a mixture of awe and terror. The Isla Consortium, a race of traders who had once paid tribute to the Nigma, immediately sought diplomatic ties with humanity, eager to remain on their good side. The warlike Zvan, once second only to the Nigma in military strength, withdrew into their home systems, unwilling to test the fate of their fallen rivals. Even the Veiler, an ancient and reclusive species, sent emissaries bearing gifts of technology and knowledge, as if seeking favor from gods who revealed themselves in terrifying fashion. But humanity made no demands. No territories were claimed. No declarations of rule were made. Their only message, sent across all known communication networks, was simple. Let this be a lesson. On the Nigma homeworld, High Chancellor Vorin stood among the ruins of what had once been the Empire's grandest city. The spires still reached skyward, but their once pristine surfaces were cracked, weathered, empty. No ships patrolled the skies. No banners flew. He walked through an hall of command, stepping over shattered statues of past rulers, their faces now worn and meaningless. The others had fled, those who had survived the fall, the scientists, the bureaucrats, the last remnant of an empire that had outlived its purpose. They had scattered to the fringes of space, hoping to carve out some forgotten existence. But Vorin had remained. He had seen what had happened. He had felt the weight of their mistake settle upon him, and he alone would bear witness. A single human ship descended through the gray sky, landing with a silent grace that belied the power it represented. The figure who emerged was unlike anything he had expected. No towering warlord, no armored conqueror, just a woman in a simple black uniform, her expression unreadable as she approached him. "Are you here to finish it?" Vorin asked, his voice devoid of emotion. The woman studied him for a long moment before speaking. "There's nothing left to finish." He laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "And yet you came." She reached into a small device at her side and tossed something onto the ground between them. A data core, its surface sleek and unmarked. "This is the last record of your empire," she said. "Everything you were, everything you did, we preserved it." Vorin stared at the device. "Why?" "Because history matters," she said simply. "Even the history of those who fall." He picked up the core, turning it over in his hands. "And what happens now?" She regarded him for a long moment before answering. "That's up to you." Then she turned and walked back toward her ship. He did not try to stop her. He only watched as the vessel lifted into the sky and disappeared, leaving him alone with the last remnants of his people's legacy. Vorin looked down at the data core, feeling the weight of it settle in his hands. The Nigma were gone, but the memory of them remained. A warning, a lesson, a testament to the price of arrogance. And somewhere in the vast and endless reaches of space, others were watching, others were listening, and they understood